So here we're told about an audio signal that's being sampled and then quantized, and we're told information about the quantizer, and that the quantization error is less than or equal to 0.5% of the peak-to-peak signal amplitude. Okay, and we're being asked to find the minimum channel bandwidth. Okay, so let's start with what we're being asked for. So the bandwidth, or PCM bandwidth, is at best, so your bandwidth is at best half the bit rate. So our problem really is finding the bit rate. So the bit rate is going to be a function of two things: the sample rate, and we're given the sample rate here, and the bit depth. And we're given information about that, but we're not actually explicitly told what that is. So let's write down what we know. We know the sample rate is 14.6. What we need to find is the bit depth, that is n. So how would we start? I guess if you think of a signal like this with a peak-to-peak voltage, let's call that peak-to-peak. So this V peak-to-peak we're told that the quantization error is 0.5% of that. So what's the quantization error? So when they talk about quantization error, is a function of the spacing between levels. So the quantization error, let's write that out. Quantization error is the step size divided by 2. So basically the resolution of our quantizer. And the step size is your dynamic range, which we're going to consider the peak-to-peak voltage divided by the number of levels. So if you were to put that into there, then our quantization error becomes the peak-to-peak voltage divided by 2L. And our error, we know, is less than or equal to 0.5% of V peak-to-peak. We're told that in the question. So I guess V peak-to-peak is no longer important. We can cancel that. That gives us an expression that we can solve for L. So we have 1 over 2L is less than or equal to 0.5%. And we can solve that for L. L is greater than 200 divided by 2, which is 100. And we know that N is ceiling function of log 2L. So N in this case is going to be a ceiling of 6.6. So N equals 7 bits per sample. So if we know N, number of bits per sample, and we know the sample rate, because we're given that in the question, we can simply multiply the two, and that'll give us the data rate. And once we know the data rate, you just divide that by 2 to find your bit depth. So your PCM bandwidth. So R equals N times Fs. So that's 7 multiplied by 14.6. That's going to give you 102.2 times 10 to the power 3. Then you can say your PCM bandwidth is greater than or equal to R over 2. So the minimum will be 51 kilohertz. And that would be your final answer.